Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. Now, I already know that this conversation is going to create a lot of talk. And I say, hey, why not? Let's talk about it. We're going into All-Star Weekend right now. Ain't nothing else better to talk about, so why not talk about this? So I was having a thought to myself yesterday, and I said to myself, the topic of the show came to me, and I was like, well, how should I approach this topic? Should we do a show? Should we do a live? Should we do something else? So up until maybe 30 minutes ago, obviously depends on when you're watching the show, I was like, you know what? Let's do a show about this, right? Let's do a show about this. And I'm sure it's going to piss off a lot of people. Now, as you guys know, Kobe Bryant is one of the three greatest players of all time. The closest thing we've ever seen to Michael Jordan. One of the best two-way players of all time, tied for most all defensive selections in NBA history as a two-guard. Shows you what Kobe Bryant is pretty much all about, a winner. Very, very competitive. All of these great things, right? But even though those things are true, there's been this big knock on Kobe throughout the course of his career, even something that he himself spoke to when he was here with us. And that knock has been, well, Kobe can't be great because he played with Shaq. And not just Shaq. He played with a prime Shaq. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, are these people saying this to say, well, as if Kobe wasn't that dude? Number one. Number two, are you saying that Shaq would have won those championships without Kobe Bryant and you just plug in any other player? If that's what you're saying, then you really don't know what the hell is going on. What I want to do is I want to look at Shaq's numbers over that 3-year run when he was at his best. I want to quickly look at his numbers that year. During the regular season, Shaq led the league in scoring in 1999-2000. Scoring 29.7 points per game with 3 blocks, 3.8 assists, which is a career high for him, 13.6 rebounds on, I'm not going to mention his it was a different game, but he shot 50% from the free throw line, while shooting 57% from the field and playing 40 minutes a game that year, which is a career high. The very following season, he averaged 28.7 points, 2.8 blocks, 12.7 rebounds on 57% shooting. The season after that, he averaged 27.2, 2 blocks, 3 assists per game, 10.7 rebounds on 57.8% shooting. Those are his championship regular season numbers. In the playoffs, he bumped that. 2000, he averaged 30.7 and 15 throughout the playoffs. 2001, he averaged 30.4 and 15.4. The following season, he averaged, this is 2002, he averaged 28.5, 2.5 blocks, and 12.6 rebounds, all on above 50% shooting. All of those seasons. So Shaq was a very, very good player. And what the numbers don't show you is what actually took place. And this is the reason why I know a lot of the people talking about Kobe and all of that did not watch basketball. Because if you saw Kobe Bryant play and you saw what was actually happening and you're not just looking at a stat sheet, you would understand what the hell was going on. Those years in the regular season, you got to mind you, Kobe Bryant came into, at that point, he was probably 21 years old. So in the 1990 season, Kobe Bryant scored, and let me see, do they have his age? I'm not sure they have his age, but then I think he must have been 21 years old. That first year, he averaged in the regular season 22.5 points per game, 0.9 in blocks, 4.9 assists, 1.6 in steals. He shot 82% from the free throw line, 32% from the three-point line, and 46%. The very next year, he averaged 28.5, while Shaq is scoring 28.5 or 28.7 or something. Both of these dudes. The scrub that these guys like to talk about, the Kobe that had Shaq carrying him. This is very interesting. In the 2000-2001 season, Shaq was averaging 28.7. In that very same season, Kobe was averaging 28.5. That you carried somebody by averaging 0.2 points per game. He was scoring 28.5 points on 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 steals, shooting 85% from the free throw line, 30.5% from the three, 46% from the field. In the final year of the dynasty run, he averaged 25.2, 1.5 steals, 5.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds, and 83% shooting from the free throw line, 25% from the three, and 46.9% from the field. Those were his regular season numbers. Let's go to his playoff numbers. 01, he averaged 21 a game. 1999 to 2000, he averaged 21.1. The next year, he averaged 29.4. And in 2002, he averaged 26.6. Those were Kobe's numbers in the playoffs. So obviously, Kobe Bryant was a very, very good player. But it turns out I'm not the only one that thought Kobe was the best player, because it turns out in 2001, Shaq was already calling Kobe the best player in the world. So what I want to do is quickly play what Shaq had to say. It's only about a 10-second clip. And then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Shaq had to say here.
When and why did you come to the revelation that this is the greatest player on the planet, Kobe Bryant?
When I first came to LA, Jerry showed me a tape of this kid, and I knew he had potential. And a lot of people thought we had problems. We never really had problems at all.
So you heard what Shaq had to say. Now let me get into the crux of my argument here, and really the title of today's show, which is, if you replaced Kobe with a LeBron, let's say at the same age, even same age Kobe is the same age LeBron James, it would have cost Shaq 3 rings. That's the argument I want to get into. And today I was perspicacious to some of the tricks that these guys were going to play. I was totally perspicacious to it. And I'm ready for it, because I've been hearing some whispers out there from various channels that, oh, this guy doesn't really understand basketball. And today we want to address some of it. And let's get into the X and O's and really talk basketball here today. Let me break it down for you guys. Why would I say that if you replaced Kobe with LeBron and put him on that team at the same age, they would have lost 3 championships? The reason I'm saying that is from a basketball standpoint. Some of you are like, how can you say that? I'll break it down for you perfectly. First of all, when the Lakers were playing to win those championships, who was their head coach? The head coach was Phil Jackson. What offense was Phil Jackson running? The offense that Phil Jackson was running was a triangle offense, right? And for you to play in a triangle offense, you need to have a certain skill set. Now, Shaq, if you look at Shaq, well, you know there were certain things that Shaq wasn't going to do, which is what? Shaq is not going to be coming off of pin downs. He's not going to be coming off of picks and running around the floor. No, Shaq is going to anchor the offense. He's going to either get on the left block or the right block, post him up, and he goes to work. That means that his complementary star needed to be somebody that is good at moving with the ball. Last time I checked, Kobe Bryant was excellent at scoring without the ball. He could score off the dribble. He could score on was catch and shoot. He can score on a pin down, whatever you want to call it. Kobe didn't necessarily need the ball to be effective on the floor, and he would still be able to bring you first level defense while he was playing on the floor. Now let's switch Kobe Bryant out, and you're playing with LeBron. LeBron is not good with playing off of the ball. As a matter of fact, LeBron is only really effective when he has 2 things going in his favor. Number one, he's playing in a spread offense where basically you have a bunch of shooters that can space the floor for him, because LeBron is a point forward, right? Essentially, that's what he is. So for LeBron to be effective, Shaq's game would need to suffer, because LeBron needs to play with a lot of spacing in order to operate. Well, how are you going to do that when the 3-point advent hadn't taken place yet? Teams were still playing with their backs towards the basket, which means that the paint would need to be clogged up. So you would need to be really good at that pull-up jump shot going left or going right, which is LeBron is not adept at. And you're going to need to then try to find a way to open up the paint, because if you can't slash to the basket, which is why he shoots such a high field goal percentage, what's his effectiveness playing with a Shaq? If you look at some of the big men that LeBron has played with, all of their games have suffered. All of them. But nevertheless, the knock is he makes players better. Who are these players that he's made better? Who are them? Who are they? Kevin Love's game deteriorated. AD has found a way to kind of sustain himself in this latter period. Look at Kevin Love. Kevin Love was relegated to a spot-up shooter in a corner. Look at Chris Bosh. All of these big men's games were actually affected, but when Kobe was playing with Shaq, Shaq was actually able to flourish playing alongside Kobe. He was averaging 30 a game those seasons. Playing with Kobe, name the big man that LeBron could play with, and that guy would average more points per game than him. Maybe with Anthony Davis right now, probably. So from a basketball standpoint, it wouldn't work. Now, I want to take it a step further because y'all going to get this work today. Some people say, but you're just saying this because you're a Kobe fan. No, I'm saying it because it's the bloody reality. Somebody say, well, what makes you say this? Kobe is quite clear. For those of you who watch basketball, you will know that Kobe Bryant is a better floor spacer. It's not even a question. Some people say you're lying. Look at LeBron's field goal shooting percentage. Let me give you guys some data. For Kobe Bryant's career, outside of 10 feet, Kobe Bryant is shooting or shot 42.2% from the field outside of 10 feet. Outside of 10 feet for LeBron is a career 37% shooter. 37% shooter. And I don't know how you're going to be putting him in the triangle offense when LeBron doesn't really post the ball a lot. He doesn't really have a lot of go-to moves in the post. So to me, I think that if you had replaced him with Kobe, number one, he would have never won a Finals MVP over Kobe, over Shaq. That would never happen. Outside of Michael Jordan, probably there's no player playing with that prime Shaq that would have won Finals MVP over Shaq. It would have never happened. Never. Nobody. It would have been LeBron is sitting on right now. If he replaced, he would have 2 Finals MVPs or whatever. However you want to call it. He would have the exact same amount of Finals MVPs as Kobe does because them 3 were not going to go to him. So when people say these things, it makes me wonder, like, okay, you guys must either think people are stupid or you guys must be totally confused. But to me, I think from a basketball standpoint, LeBron would have cost Shaq 3 rings. Arguably, maybe they would have found a way to get 1. But back to back, it would have never happened. Absolutely not. This is the first time you've heard me refer to the Milwaukee Bucks as them damn Bucks and that damn Doc Rivers. Why are we talking about the Bucks today? Well, as you guys know, the Bucks were a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. This was one of the best teams in the NBA. But there were reports that were coming out that former rookie head coach Adrian Griffin was losing the locker room. Players were beginning to tune him out for whatever reason. Not even halfway through the season, the Milwaukee Bucks elect to fire head coach Adrian Griffin. Fantastic. The very next day after firing him, the Milwaukee Bucks players are seen celebrating on the basketball court, dancing around in a huddle. After they fire Adrian Griffin, who do they go after? Within less than 24 hours, we hear that the Bucks had decided to hire Doc Rivers. And when the name Doc Rivers came up, we all had the same reaction. LMAO. We were all laughing our asses off. Like, Doc Rivers? Number one, do you dudes not know who Doc Rivers is? That's number one. Number two, how the hell does Doc Rivers keep getting these jobs so fast? Nevertheless, they hired Doc Rivers to right the ship. Doc Rivers gets there. And there was a post that said, as it stands right now, Doc Rivers is going to be the head coach of the All-Star game. And everybody was laughing like, this is ridiculous, man. And I think I heard Charles Barkley on TNT say Doc Rivers needs to give that the bonus if they win. They need to give that money to Adrian Griffin. Fantastic. Then Doc Rivers ultimately elects to do that. So what happens? Yesterday, game right before All-Star weekend, the Milwaukee Bucks are playing against a shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies team. No John Moran, none of these guys. And most people thought, given the bumpy start they've had, with Doc Rivers, I think they were, I think they had lost, 6 out of their last 9 games or something like that. And what happens? Instead of going out there and just trampling over that team, they end up losing to the Memphis Grizzlies by 3 points, which is a total embarrassment. And at the end of the game, you can hear Doc Rivers talk about some of these players didn't even know the play calls. Half of them, their minds were already in Cabo. So I was watching NBA on TNT to see what Charles Barkley and the crew had to say. And when it came time for them to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, they absolutely went off. So for those of you who didn't hear that, we want to play for you now and then come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to that.
This game, Memphis missing basically everybody. And as you point out at halftime, a lot of guys on two-way contracts.
10-day contract.
10-day contracts.
It got so bad for Milwaukee, they went to a zone.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing about when you watch Taylor Jenkins' teams play.
They play hard.
All the
time. Taylor Jenkins is a hell of a coach.
They lost to a bunch of dudes on 10 days.
Yeah, yeah. Shaq, they went to a zone.
It would have been, and not only on 10 days, Shaq. A lot of those guys, like a one and dones or like a Gigi Jackson in those situations, they would have trouble. Who's the number 1 team in the country right now? UConn.
UConn, really good.
They'd have trouble with UConn. Like it'd be a good game if that game was going on now.
Why do you say we look at the highlights? Yeah, come on, we need to. No, I'm only 3 games left before the All-Star break. So let's just let's go through this.
The Milwaukee Bucks are in trouble in terms of intensity, in terms of leadership, in terms of know-how. Like this is I don't. Doc Rivers is a Hall of Fame coach. There's no reason to start off 3-7. You should be excited, and they should have an energy of excitement when he came in. That, hey, we're trying to win it all, and this is what it's about. But it went backfire.
Milwaukee needs to understand, because of Giannis and Dame, the opponents are going to be playing way above their heads. But forget all that. You're supposed to blow this team out by 30. The fact that you're 3-6, I know you say it's a throwaway game, but when you're not playing well, you want to end the All-Star break on a positive note. They were supposed to come out and smash this team, but Chuck said it. They had trouble with the defense, no timely stops, no effort. I believe you. And like I said earlier, it's a championship team on paper. That's nowhere near a championship.
Yeah,
the way they're playing right now, they're going to get swept in the first round.
You know, it's interesting. Okay, let's be patient. Let's be patient. And then I said, okay, they had the champs come to the house and they smacked them up. They beat Denver about 25. And I'm like, okay, they got the Heat. The Heat going to play. And I said, I said condolence to Jimmy Butler too, man. I just thinking about you and your family, brother. And then like, they playing the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. They're gonna get a little momentum. They're gonna beat them. Then they're gonna beat Memphis.
Go into the break with a little 3-game winning streak,
yes.
3-4-game winning streak.
Now, the Memphis Grizzlies won 2 in a row, and these guys lose 2 in a row.
So you heard what the crew had to say about the Bucks. I want to continue on to just explain to you just how bad the situation is with the Milwaukee Bucks. Are you guys aware that the Milwaukee Bucks fired a rookie head coach to go get a coach in Doc Rivers who's doing a worse job than the rookie head coach? Do you know since Doc Rivers has taken over the Milwaukee Bucks, they've lost 70% of their games? 70%. They're 7-3 under stewardship of Doc Rivers. To add insult to injury, are you guys also aware of the fact that as we sit here and speak, the Milwaukee Bucks are actually paying 3 coaches? They're paying Mike Budenholzer because they fired him. They're paying Adrian Griffin. They fired him. And now they're paying Doc Rivers. That's the Milwaukee Bucks. I remember this summer, a lot of people had a lot of high expectations for this Bucks team. Why? Because over the offseason, they acquired Damian Lillard, Dame time. Now, here's the wrinkle. When that trade went down, not everybody was excited about it. Or that acquisition went down, not everybody was excited about it. Do you know why? Because some people out there in the media and some fans were saying, yeah, we got Dame. He's an offensive powerhouse. But we just lost arguably our best defender in Drew Holiday at the point of attack at the point guard spot. People like Skip Bayless and others were like, the Bucks are going to feel it. And what's been happening? Their defense has actually gotten worse. Damian Lillard is not providing the premium on offense to cover for his defensive deficiencies, which brings me over to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Listen, we got to point fingers at Giannis too. The reason we got to point fingers at Giannis is because if this were any other superstar in his position, they would be getting criticized. If it was Kevin Durant, he'll be getting criticized. If it was LeBron James, he'll be getting criticized. If it was Kawhi Leonard, he'll be getting criticized. So now it's Giannis Antetokounmpo's turn to be criticized. Giannis has been there in the midst of all of this. I agree with getting rid of Mike Budenholzer. I agree with that. He was one of the most dogmatic coaches in the entire NBA. Could not make an adjustment to save his life. So I understood that. But in the case of Adrian Griffin, now Giannis may say, I didn't get the coach fired. I'm sure he didn't, but you better believe he was aware and was abreast of what was going on. You better believe that. And if you're aware of that, you must have had an inclination of who they were going after. And now you got Doc Rivers. So now we find ourselves in a situation which is, you got to make it work. There are no two ways about it. You have to make it work. And if it doesn't work, the people that need to be blamed are the following: Bucks management, the people that have been making all of these decisions behind the scenes. That's number one. Number two, Doc Rivers. And number three, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the league on that team. Those are the three culprits that we need to look at. Those are the three people we need to be pointing fingers at. Because if we're not going to point fingers in their direction, then who are we going to hold accountable? Someone needs to answer for this. And the Bucks need to right this ship. The current rate Doc Rivers is going at, he's not going to get another coaching job. And I don't see how he could. But then again, he has an amazing agent and he may pull another rabbit out of the hat. So let me get into this topic. It seems like a lot of people don't like Stephen A. Smith, even some of his fellow New Yorkers. Now, some of you guys are like, well, excuse me, what are you talking about? Well, as you guys know, Stephen A. Smith is a New Yorker. He's from Queens, and he calls himself a New York Knicks fan, right? He likes to say he's very happy when the Knicks are doing well. But as you guys know, the Knicks have been going through a little bit of turbulence right now. They lost 4 of their last games, and they're 5-5 out of their last 10, and they lost Julius Randle. So that was a pretty big blow to what those guys were trying to do there. So what happened? I'm going through the internet today, and I see a clip that's recommended to me from Dan Le Batard's channel. Now, if you know anything about Dan Le Batard and Stephen A. Smith, they've kind of had their back and forths over the last few months. Now, they kind of have like this bittersweet relationship, love-hate relationship, I guess you would say. So I was watching, and as I was going through it, I came across a clip. And in this clip, you see this guy who I was unaware of at the time, who actually turned out to be, a comedian, as a matter of fact, and his name is Sam Morrill, who also is a huge New York Knicks fan, and he's a New Yorker. So they're talking, and then all of a sudden, this guy just starts going off on Stephen A. Smith, talking about his takes are horrible. He doesn't watch the Knicks. He needs to stop talking and all. I'm like, God, I'm like, damn, what happened? So for those of you who didn't hear what this gentleman had to say, we want to play it for you now, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what he had to say here.
I think Hardenstein defensively, like if you watch basketball, like that's why I know Stephen A. Smith doesn't watch basketball. When he goes, some guy named Hardenstein, shut up, Stephen A. Watch an actual game before you discredit the blue-collar work ethic of the great Isaiah Hardenstein, who has been the glue this year, and I only hope we can find the money to re-sign him.
You really don't like Stephen A. Smith's Knicks analysis, do you?
He's a curse to the franchise. Stop rooting for us. I don't want you on our side. Anytime he calls a game, we lose. Go away.
I like that you called out Stephen A. when Dan was like, Hartenstein, some guy named Hartenstein.
That pissed me off. That really pissed me off.
Well, take out Le Batard, man.
No, but I prefaced it by saying I know how much he loves Hartenstein, and I know that America is laughing at the idea that would be the difference against the Celtics. I'm not even sure that you would dispute that would be America's appraisal, not necessarily basketball people's appraisal.
Well, maybe America's got to get on the Hardenstein page like I am, because this guy's doing all the dirty work. I love this guy. Tibbs reinvented his game. He was like a stretch five on the Clippers. He comes here, he becomes like a badass I'm just worried. He's sitting out now with like a sore Achilles, and I'm like, what the hell is that? I don't know what a sore Achilles is. That scares the hell out of me. So rest till you're 100.
Let's play this sound to agitate Sam Morril.
I respectfully disagree. And we all know that how I feel about my Knicks, but they're 26th in defensive efficiency rating. Mitchell Robinson is out. Jericho Sims is out. So I got to deal with some dude named Hartenstein.
Who's been playing with
and an effort.
Stephen A.
He never shortchanges you with effort. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Yeah, you are disrespectful. Some guy, this dude's an NBA player. So I have to listen to some guy named Stephen A. Smith who doesn't know what he's talking about. And how could ESPN get any worse? Like, I'm just like, dude, replace him with like RJ or JJ or someone who knows what they're talking about. And thank God for Kendrick Perkins, who's becoming, a surprising ally to Knicks Twitter and Knicks fan base. I never thought I'd find the day where I love Kendrick Perkins, but this guy finally gives us props. No, TNT, I love those guys, but they won't give the Knicks props. They won't give Jalen Brunson props. Like, I don't know what Kenny Smith has against New York, being a New York guy, but like, get over it, dude. We're here. No one wants us in the playoffs. We just got to get healthy.
Brutal! Who are the sports analysts that make you angriest?
Stephen A's up there. I like most. I mean, look, I don't watch enough to like. I watch Breen and Walt Frazier, so I have the two best in the game calling for my Knicks. I love Kenny Albert. I love the Knicks rotation. I like Alan Hahn a lot. Any of those guys are great. The ones who make me angry, Stephen A. Doris Burke bugs me. I got to be honest. I don't know. Like, stop riding Jason Tatum's jock this hard. It's unbelievable. It's like, are you from Southie? Did I miss something? I wish there was a way to mute her and I could just listen to Mike Breen. Honestly.
So basically, you see
she's so anti-Knicks.
No one has an issue with Doris Burke.
No one does. But right. Your bias, you have so much Knicks bias, and you're so mad at the media in general for laughing at the Knicks for 25 years.
So you heard what the gentleman had to say. Here are my thoughts. Is it possible that Stephen A. Smith doesn't watch all the Knicks games? Well, sure. I think the reason that would be is because maybe the guy is so busy. The guy seems to be someone that works all day. He has a lot of commitments. So maybe by the time he gets home, and maybe at the time that he's working, it would be very difficult for him to catch some of those Knicks games, right? I'm assuming. So you also look at time zones. Maybe he's on the West Coast. Things are a little bit different. So I can understand that. And I don't think anybody covering sports watches all the games. You may pick a few games that you want to watch. You can say, I want to watch basketball every night, but you ain't watching all the games. You better believe that. So I don't think that there's anyone out there covering sports that says, oh, I watch all the games, unless you have no other life outside of what you do. Most people have lives. You go out, you go to the gym, you go to eat, you go out to, you do other things. You have a family, you have friends. It's impossible. In my case, I try to watch some games, but because of the time zone difference, I'm not staying up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start watching a game that starts at 10 p.m. It's not going to happen. Like, that's just stupid, because then it's going to bleed into my work and all that. That's stupid. So there are other reasons why certain people don't watch. So I understand that. He brought up some other points about him not really knowing the Knicks. Listen, Stephen A. Smith is one of the resident New Yorkers on ESPN. He has to hype up the Knicks. And I think the way that he talks about the Knicks is just... He's also Stephen A. Smith is also in the business of entertainment, right? You also have to be entertaining in the way that he does it. So sometimes, does he over embellish? Absolutely. But most people do, because whenever you put on the camera and the mic, you got to also perform. You can't just be, I'm going to be my normal self the way I am with my friends and family or whatever it is. I'm just going to be that way when I come on camera. No, that's not going to work. You got to put a little bit more energy, put more pep in your step. So I totally get all of that. In terms of some of the other stuff about, he's really horrible with some of his takes, him becoming a Kendrick Perkins fan, I get it. He is right. Kendrick Perkins has been supporting the Knicks a lot. Jalen Brunson was making a case for MVP, but obviously now that they're losing games, it's going to be pretty hard for him to have that case. But this guy is speaking, I believe, from the standpoint of avid a New York Knicks fan and a New Yorker, right? And that's how it is with New Yorkers, man. Like, that's how it is. Not everybody is built to play in that. It's a totally different thing, man. Like, New Yorkers, they're really, really passionate about the Knicks. I knew this guy I used to go to school with in high school and in art and design, and he was a huge Knicks. I mean, he had the hat, he had the jersey, he was a huge shoe. And there's some people like that. Spike Lee and all of that, he's not doing that to show. Like, he really, really, really about that Knick life. Like, that's his life. Like, so to me, man, I think it's just a Knick fan expressing his views on some of the things that he heard Stephen A. Smith say about his Knicks.